I've mentioned before that it makes money to keep you financially ignorant, and I found a new case to prove it. Look at this. According to a CNBC article, card issuers, or credit card companies, label customers as deadbeats if they pay off their balances in full each month, avoiding fees and interest on their accounts. Using that reasoning, allow me to explain what it means to be a non-deadbeat. In America, the typical home sold with credit card debt is worth $79,512. The interest rate on this credit card debt is 24.5% on average. However, I'll be kind and round down. If you pay the minimal amount due each month, which is $165, you would, guess what, pay $255,700 in interest. This means that in order to pay off the $7,950 balance, you will need to spend more than $33,000 over the period of 17 years in order to be debt-free. This is what it means to a credit card company to not consider you a deadbeat. If you only read the second sentence of the article, you'll see that while paying off your credit card is a good financial practice, nobody likes to do it because it reduces the credit card company's profit margin. However, this is only the start. Overdraft fees brought in $2.2 billion for JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America alone last year. That means that just those three banks made billions of dollars because people spent money they didn't have, which forced them to give the banks money when they didn't have any to begin with. Does this sound wrong to you? Let me start by discussing two very important topics that you should really understand: how you can take advantage of the system and how it is profitable to keep you broke. First, let me explain how you can take advantage of this system. Most people, upon hearing this information about credit card companies and banks, immediately react negatively, believing that they are evil, the devil, bad, and this or that. However, what I want you to realize is that every single person and entity in the world has an agenda. Banks, for example, are in the business of lending you money. Credit card companies are in the business of lending you money. Corporations are in the business of selling you goods. You should learn how these entities operate so that you can use it to your advantage. Because of what we've discussed thus far, if you're financially illiterate, you will be exploited by banks and credit card companies, and when you're exploited by them, you will be the one enriching them at your expense. However, if we turn this around a little, if you know how to use a credit card or a bank, you can take advantage of them. For instance, I prefer to use my credit card for purchases rather than cash or debit cards. Since I always pay off my credit card debt in full each month and receive cash back when I use it, I no longer carry a load or pay interest. This is because using my credit card entitles me to benefits like hotel and flight upgrades. I receive improvements on my rental car. There are many advantages to using the system. For example, you can obtain free insurance on certain items and purchase protection on other items. This also applies to your bank. However, what happens if you don't use your bank to pay for other obligations or to finance your Gucci? You can now take advantage of your bank. To put it simply, you may use your bank to make a little profit on your money, but this isn't the ideal place to keep it. But if you have a high profit savings account, which is like what I have good now, I have cash sitting there to protect me against an emergency. I have cash sitting there that's waiting to be invested. You need to have a place to store your cash. But if you know how to use the bank now, you can have the bank pay you instead of you paying the bank interest. You can earn 3, 4, or 5% annually just for leaving your savings sitting there. Furthermore, if you choose to pursue debt, which you already know is not a path that is right for everyone, you can also use debt responsibly. I do not support taking on debt to pay for items that will deplete your finances, such as a vacation, a car, or clothing. But if you wanted to go out and purchase rental properties, you could use bank loans to generate income, because if you are able to borrow money to purchase a property, it can cover your mortgage and put some cash in your pocket. But you have to do it correctly, which is why I say that all debt is bad debt. On the off chance that you don't have any idea how to utilize or deal with your obligation, it can quickly turn terrible, even great obligation like the credit you use to purchase investment property. So you have to be extremely cautious when using this type of debt, but if you know how the system works, you can learn how to use it to your advantage. The same is true of corporations. People will say that all of them are scams because they're trying to sell you something, which is, of course, true because that's what companies do. They try to sell their goods. People become irate because they don't know how to say no. For example, when someone asks you if you want to buy a fridge while you're out on the town, you might feel tempted to pull out your credit card and say, "Yes, please take my money. No, don't give me the fridge. Yes, give me the fridge." People often believe that they are unable to restrict their spending, but the onus now shifts to the individual to determine how best to manage their finances. Businesses want to sell you products. Banks wish to liquidate you. Credit card firms want to sell you more debt, and you need to realize that you don't want to be the one creating all of these businesses. Rich before you're rich. There's nothing wrong with that. I want you to make BMW and Rolex wealthy. However, I want you to do that after you're wealthy. I don't want you to make these companies wealthy at your expense. If you want the nice things, that's fine. You have to give these companies money in order for them to be wealthy. The problem arises when you give them money before you have any money. Before you become wealthy, your priorities are all wrong. That's why I want you to learn how to use the system and comprehend how this stuff operates. The issue is that, at the moment, the average person is merely making everyone else wealthy. They will never be able to accumulate wealth for themselves because, in addition to lending money to all these corporations, they are also using credit cards and other loans to make purchases they cannot afford. So even if they are sort of trying to make cash purchases, they still have to pay for everything else plus interest. This is where it's important for you to learn how to use the system correctly. It's also important for you to realize that there are people who would pay to keep you broke or financially ignorant. Everyone will have an agenda, so the best thing you can do is increase your financial literacy. The closest illustration of this that I can think of is if you go to the doctor because you're not feeling well, and the doctor says, "Okay, we have to cut off half of your body because there's something wrong with you." Get 2 opinions, a third opinion, and a fourth opinion before letting the doctor take off half of your body. The majority of people observe this when they're making financial decisions. The more educated you are, the better decisions you can make with your money. The typical individual goes to their banker, not a financial advisor, for financial guidance. So you ask the banker what kind of car to buy, how big of a house to buy, and what kind of merchandise do you think they'll sell you more of. They make more money the more you borrow. Now, even if you choose to work with a financial advisor, which is fine, you should ensure that you have a basic understanding of finance so that you can ensure that they share your objectives and are acting to your greatest advantage. You should also exercise caution when dealing with the government to ensure that you are not depending on them. After all, I sincerely hope and pray that they have our best interests at heart. Nevertheless, you also want to make sure that you're prioritizing your needs and those of your family and community over those of other people. I mean, we just take out loans for things like college. Everyone is talking about the massive catastrophe that is student loans. It's a major problem for youth. The government claims that student loans rank as the single largest asset on the balance sheet of millennials, making it impossible for them to start investing their money and building wealth. Millennials are also unable to purchase homes or cars due to student loan debt. Thus, if you look at this right now, the U.S. government talks about how horrible student loans are. The government is able to continue spending the way it does because it has this enormous asset on its balance sheet that it can effectively borrow money against. This means that everyone has an agenda. Perhaps you can't change the system, but you can change how you respond to it. Perhaps you can't change how the world works. However, at the same time, these student loans are their largest asset. They are by far the largest asset on their balance sheet. But you can alter your perception of how the world functions so that you can benefit from this economic system. After all, it's like arguing that gravity exists. You can either accept it, get angry about it, or learn to live with gravity and figure out how to succeed in it. What I want you to realize is that this is our economic system. You can use it to your advantage to improve your financial situation, or you can use it as an excuse to whine and make other people rich. This brings us to your own financial responsibility of understanding that you must manage your finances on your own. No one else, not even your employer, will do it for you. This is why it is so crucial for you to become financially savvy and invest in your own financial education. The truth is that once you start to understand this, you'll notice this huge divide that once you start building your financial education, it becomes exponential. Your mom and government won't do it for you either. Well, maybe they will, but I don't think they will. Now, an exponential curve doesn't always look like this. You have to go through what I like to refer to as the decade of sacrifice, where you invest money, time, and effort to build wealth, but you don't really see any return. However, once you start to see the curve look like this, you'll notice an upward inflection, and your wealth will grow along with it. This is because not only did you invest money to improve your knowledge, but you also invested time to learn it. You also put in that money so that it compounds, and once everything starts to really take shape, you'll see that your wealth machine begins to grow beyond you. However, to do that, you must first begin constructing a financial education mindset, then begin taking action to pay off your credit card debt and quit enriching your banker. Next, you must use your money to begin investing, and then you must work to earn more money in order to have more money to do so. Finally, you must make the sacrifice of living below your means in order to have more money to invest, and you must work to accumulate more assets. When you first begin to amass these assets, whether they be stocks or real estate, you don't notice many changes in your way of life. Being financially fit is a lifelong game. It's not something you do for 6 months or 10 years. It's something you do for a lifestyle. The more you stick with it, the easier it becomes, and the more you do it, the more compounds. You don't see much change in anything, even in your wealth, because you're just getting started, but you stick with it year after year after year. After that decade, this is when you start to see that change. And this is where realizing that you have to make this commitment if you want to be able to live the kind of life that most people only dream of, because, although it's simple to go out and purchase a BMW, making the sacrifices necessary to become wealthy and be able to purchase nice things without worrying about money is something that most people are unwilling to do. It's simple to go out and purchase a Rolex watch. Anyone will finance the purchase, making you appear wealthy. But if you want to visit the Rolex store, you should go to the BMW dealership. You want to look for a $70,000 car, pay cash for it, and not really change your lifestyle because it was just a passing thought. Well, to get there, you'll have to make that sacrifice today so that you can have all the nice things without worrying about the cost. Once you're there, definitely go out and make Rolex. Sure, go out and make BMW wealthy. But the great thing is that you're doing it without sacrificing your own wealth, because you previously attained wealth and can now use your assets to support and maintain your way of life. However, if you want the pleasant things, you have to modify how you think and behave because, well, the system is set up to take advantage of those who lack financial literacy. The Gucci, the BMWs, and the opulent trips, everything luxurious and pricey in reality. How can you tell if you can afford it? One of the first things I want to know is if I can write off this purchase for taxes. If so, that will make it a little bit easier for me to occasionally justify making this purchase. In conclusion, understanding the mechanisms by which our banking system perpetuates poverty is crucial for effecting meaningful change. From predatory lending practices to limited access to financial services, the system is stacked against many Americans, particularly those in marginalized communities. By shedding light on these issues and advocating for reforms that promote financial inclusion and equity, we can work towards a future where everyone has equal opportunity to build wealth and thrive. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Investing Tutorial for more insights on navigating the world of finance. Together, let's empower ourselves and others to create a more just and prosperous society.